Hey guys, this is Josh here with Trillium Wild Edibles. I'm sitting inside of my house and I'm about to make some Lobelia tincture, so stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back. Alright, so we're going to make some Lobelia tincture today, and you can see I've got a few things laid out here in front of us, and these are going to make our Lobelia tincture a lot easier for us to make. So let's go over what we have here. The first things first is we have our menstruum. Now a menstruum, if you're not familiar with tincture terminology, a menstruum is something that's used to extract medicinal qualities or properties out of an herb. In this case, we need acetic acid or apple cider vinegar. Make sure you have raw, unfiltered, organic apple cider vinegar. You want to make sure it's organic and raw. The next thing we have here is some American Harvest brand organic vodka. What we have here is an entire plate of Lobelia herb ready to use. Here we have Lobelia leaf, stems, seed pods, flowers, and seeds. Here you'll notice that we have our tincture jars. I have a couple 2-ounce jars here, and then I have some 1-ounce jars. This 1-ounce jar is clean. I'm actually going to be using this for measuring. So we're going to set that one aside. These are presumably going to be filled up with tincture. We'll actually see how much we get in the end. The thing with tincture is sometimes you don't ever really know what you're going to get in the end. Some other things I have here. I have some labels so we can label our jars. I also have a Sharpie to make labeling easier. And you're going to need a jar so you can set your herb and menstruum, your tincture, as it's being prepared in, so that way you can set it in a dark, cool spot. So I've got a jar ready for that. So now that we've gone through the things that we need, let's go ahead and get started on making our Lobelia tincture. Alright, so before we make our Lobelia tincture, there are a couple things I should mention first before we get into it. One of the first things I'm going to mention is that if you do some research online about making tinctures, you're going to find a lot of different things about menstruum ratios, herb to menstruum ratios, etc. Now that requires some mathematics, and some people aren't okay with that, some people don't like it, and some people feel it's not actually necessary. I'm one of those people that sometimes feels it's not always necessary, but if you want to do so for peace of mind, you want to look up the herb to menstruum ratio you should use. With Lobelia, you are looking at a 1 to 10 herb to menstruum ratio. Now, I'm not going to be following that exactly, and for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to get into herb to menstruum ratios or anything like that, really. The only thing I'm going to get into is the amount of acetic acid to use, the amount of vinegar to use. That's all I'm going to get into mathematically, just because, like I said, I don't feel it's always necessary. You may be different, you may want something different just for your own comfort level, and that's okay. Okay, so the first thing we need to do to start making our tincture is we need to take our plate of herb and we need to just stuff it in this jar. There's nothing fancy about this part. Okay, now right now you guys can probably see all of these little bitty specks on this plate. Those little bitty brown or black specks are actually the seeds of Lobelia Inflata. You can see there are a lot of them, and they are extremely tiny. Now the seed and the seed pods are the most potent part of Lobelia. So whenever you're making your tincture for the very first time, I would personally recommend you only use leaves and the stems. And if you find that to be too weak, next time you make some, add some of the seeds. That's my personal recommendation just for safety concerns. We just want to tilt the plate and then tap it. And we're going to see most of those seeds are going to fall down to the corner here. And then we just scoop those into our jar. Alright, now you may remember me saying in the beginning that this one jar here, it is empty. Though it's labeled Reishi, it is empty. And it has been cleaned. You may remember me saying in the beginning that this jar is for measuring. And this is for measuring my amount of apple cider vinegar so I know I have the right amount of acetic acid. Now the reason acetic acid or apple cider vinegar is used in tincture of lobelia is because lobeline, one of the main chemical constituents of lobelia, is extracted through acetic acid. Some people use entirely apple cider vinegar. I like a mix of vodka and apple cider vinegar for my tincture personally. So what we want to keep in mind is, since we're going for about 4 ounces of tincture in the end, possibly 5, it might make 5. And again, we don't have to worry about being too exact. I'm going to need about an ounce, 1 fluid ounce of apple cider vinegar. And these jars are 1 fluid ounce, so that'll make it really easy for me to know I have the right amount. So we're just going to set our plate underneath it, so in case we spill anything here. Okay, now we've got an ounce of apple cider vinegar. So what we're going to need now is we're going to need 4 ounces of organic vodka. So first we're going to pour our 1 ounce of apple cider vinegar in our jar of lobelia herb, and we're ready to go. Make sure we get as much of it out here as we can. And then at this point, we want 4 to 5 of these. Now we want to make, the main thing to keep in mind is that we want this herb to be completely covered. I want to go with just a touch more because some of it is going to absorb into the herbs. And then this little bit that spilled on the plate, we're just going to dump it right inside. And then if you really, really want to, you can just lick the plate. Though I personally would not recommend that if you've never taken lobelia. Okay, so now that we've got our jar of lobelia herb, we just want to make sure that we get every part of this herb wet. We'll just take a wooden spoon. You don't want to use anything metal in this. You want to make sure you use wood. Reason being, the acid content in this will actually affect the medicinal qualities in the end if you use metal. So now that we've got all of our herb covered, we've made sure it's all wet. We just need to put the lid onto our jar, and then all we have to do is label it. Alright, so now that we're done, all we've got to do is shake this up some. And we just want to set this in a dark, cool spot, and you want to let it sit there for 3 to 6 weeks, just depending on the strength of tincture you want in the end. Hey guys, this is Josh here with Trillium Wild Edibles, and today we're going to be making some Boneset tincture. Stay tuned. Alright, so if you plan on foraging for your Boneset, it's important that you know how to identify it. So if you don't already know how to, I'll put a link in the description below to my video on how to identify Boneset. Another important thing to know is that you're going to need the leaves and the flowers of Boneset, and you're going to need both of those dried. And you can see here how I have 2 jars. One of them is Boneset leaves, and another one is Boneset flowers, and both of these are already dried. Alright, and once your Boneset's all the way dried, you're going to notice that you still have these stems. We don't need any of these stems. We just want these flowers. All these little flower clusters. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pluck them off. So we're just going to continue to shuck all of these little flowers off of here, and then after I get that done, I'll get back to you. Alright, so we've got ourselves a nice, clean, sterile jar. And all we're going to do is we're going to fill this, not really fill it, but we're going to just shove our Boneset flowers right inside there. Now whenever you're making Boneset tincture, an important thing to keep in mind is that you want to follow about a 1 to 5 herb to menstruum ratio. It means basically 1 parts herb to 5 parts menstruum, or alcohol or glycerin if that's what you're using if you're not making an alcohol-based tincture. If you are using alcohol, I would prefer using anything that's 40% alcohol and above. Alright, so we've got our Boneset flowers in there. And then now we're just going to be taking our Boneset leaves and we're going to break them up a little bit, not a lot, but just so they'll fit in there because they're really big. And again, I'm not going to be using all my Boneset leaves I've got because I'm going to combine those with the Boneset flowers and the mullein leaf to be making a really good tea for colds. So basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get myself equal parts of dry leaves to flowers. Okay, that's perfect. That's where we want it to be. We're at 1 cup by this jar's measurements. Now again, these together, this probably wouldn't even weigh dry weight. It probably wouldn't even weigh an ounce. Dry weight and net fluid ounces are completely different. And again, those are difficult to convert in my opinion. It just takes time that I think is just unnecessary. So I do it this way. And then after this, we're just going to take our wooden spoon and we're going to pack this down really nice and tight here. Okay, you can see here that we've got it packed down to about 1/2 cup. That's perfect. Now at this point, you just want to take your alcohol and you just want to cover the leaves and the flowers. Alright. Okay, and I know this is maybe a little difficult to see, but we've got 1 cup of liquid to 1/2 cup of herb. So now you just want to put a lid on it, and then we want to label it. Give it a good shake. Alright, and after it's done labeled, you just want to put this into a dark spot and let it sit for 4 to 6 weeks, and then afterwards strain it and put it in little tincture jars, and then you're done. So I thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. Alright, now one thing I absolutely enjoy is syrup. I like all kinds of syrup, actually. And a while back I actually decided it would be pretty interesting to take wood sorrel and turn it into some syrup. So you can see I've got a couple things here. I have about 1/2 cup of chopped up wood sorrel leaves. I have some sugar. And I also have about 1 cup of water here. So the first thing we want to do is turn on our burner. Get our water nice and hot. And then I'll get back to you. Okay, so you can see our water is starting to heat up now. We're just going to take our cup of wood sorrel leaves and we're just going to put them in there. And we're going to turn the burner off. We don't want this to boil yet. We just want to let this steep for about 10 to 15 minutes, just like we're making a wood sorrel tea. Yeah, that smells good. And here you may notice there's some flowers in here. I actually have wood sorrel flowers and pods in here. Those are totally safe and kosher to use if you feel comfortable with using them. I don't mind using them. They taste just fine. So we're just going to let this steep for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then again I'll get back to you. Okay, now while our wood sorrel is steeping, it's a good idea to go ahead and measure out about 1/2 cup of sugar. Okay, so I've got my 1/2 cup sugar, and now we just got to wait a few more minutes for this to finish up. And while your wood sorrel is steeping, you also might want to just kind of stir it around a little bit, give it some movement. This will help to release a little more of the flavor from the sorrel. And then whenever your wood sorrel is done, get yourself a strainer and a bowl so you can catch the liquid. We want to strain all of these leaves out of the water. Alright, now this is starting to smell pretty good. dump our water into the bowl here. Try to get as many of these leaves out as possible. We don't want any of them ending up in our syrup. Move this around, kind of smash them. Help them release a lot of their water. As you can see, they hold water really well. And then we want to dump this bowl kind of carefully because there is going to be some sediment that made it through. Alright. Pick out any big stragglers. Alright, now we have a pan of wood sorrel tea. So we want to go ahead and turn our burner back on. We want to pour our sugar in until we feel we have the right amount. Give your syrup a stir. And here I've used only a 1/4 cup of sugar at this point. It smells like it's going to be pretty sweet. I'm going to need to add just a touch more. We'll just continue to stir it up, and we're going to let this get to a simmer, and then I'll get back to you. As your wood sorrel cooks, it's a good idea to also check it by getting a spoon and pouring the liquid in a separate container and letting it cool off. Just so you can see where it's at as a syrup, because you don't want it to turn into candy. You want this to be a syrup. And if you let it cook too long or reduce too much, you'll end up with a candy. Okay, here you can see it's really starting to heat up nicely. Here you can see it's also starting to simmer. And the whole point of this is basically just to simmer it down until you get the consistency you desire for your syrup. Everybody kind of likes a different consistency of syrup. Some people really like runny. Some people really like thick, almost honey-like syrup. And then we're just going to continue to let this simmer until it gets to the consistency that we're looking for. Okay, now while your syrup is still warm, it's going to be a little runny, but as it cools down, it's going to thicken. So that's something to keep in mind. Alright, and then as your syrup starts cooling off a bit, and whenever it's not boiling anymore, go ahead and get a clean jar, and then just dump it into the jar. Like I said, right now it looks really runny and watery, but whenever it cools down, it's going to thicken considerably. And we just want to let that sit on the counter until we can actually touch it at least. And there's your finished syrup, a really nice golden wood sorrel flavored syrup. And right now you can use that syrup as it is, or you can set it in the refrigerator with the lid on it, and it should store for a couple months actually. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you found this helpful. Hey guys, welcome back. Alright, so I'm about to make a pancake out of some curly dock seeds that I've ground into a flour. And here I have about 1/8 cup left of some flour that I made out of the seeds. Now obviously you're going to need some curly dock seeds that you've ground into flour to make this. So if you guys don't know already how to make flour out of the curly dock seeds, I'll put a couple links in the description below, and you guys can go and click on those videos if you're interested to learn how to make the seeds of curly dock into some flour. Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, now whenever I'm making my pancakes, one thing I like to do to get my butter melted so I can mix it into my flour mixture is I like to just get a glass Pyrex bowl and set it on the burner that I plan on using. And then I'll just turn that burner onto medium. And then at that point, I'll just cut myself a tablespoon, approximately, of butter into the bowl. And that'll get it nice and melted for me. And while the butter in our bowl is melting, it's a good idea to just cut yourself some butter right into your skillet, so that way it's ready when our pancake dough is done. Okay, at this point our butter is now melted. So what we want to do is we just want to go ahead and measure ourselves out 1/8 of a cup, which I already know this is 1/8 of a cup, but I'm going to put it in the measuring cup just for video's sake. And here you can see we've got around 1/8 of a cup of curly Dock Seed flour. So we're just going to take this and we're going to dump it right into our bowl of butter. Sorry about that, I forgot I zoomed the camera back. And in this jar I just have some organic whole spelt flour, and of that we're going to just get ourselves an approximate 1/4 cup. Okay, so we have our 1/4 cup of whole spelt flour, so we're just going to take that and we're going to dump that into our bowl. Next we're going to add a dash of salt, and then we're going to take a little bit of maple sugar. And we're going to pour in some maple sugar for taste. I like to use about 1 tablespoon, but I really like maple, so it's up to you. You can use regular sugar, brown sugar, turbinado, muscovado, whatever sugar you prefer. And then we just want to take this and mix it up into our butter really well. Almost like we're making a pie crust or biscuits or anything of that nature. Just mix it in really good. You're going to see solid clumps starting to form. And then after you've mixed your flour together with your butter, go ahead and get your skillet back onto your burner and turn it back on to medium if you didn't leave it on. And then at this point we just want to take ourselves 1 egg, crack it directly into our bowl, and then we want to pour ourselves just a little bit of milk, and then we just go ahead and whisk this up together. Okay, so we've got our butter melted nice and hot. And we just want to pour in some of our pancake batter. Alright, there's one little pancake on its way. You guys can see the color. Really nice, dark brown, almost purple. But I'm going to let this cook up and then I'll get back to you. Okay, you can see our pancake is starting to cook rather well now. It's almost ready to flip. Here in just maybe a few more seconds. Scoop her up, flip her over. Make sure we touch all these edges down so they get cooked real well. You see this looks, for the most part, like a normal pancake. The only difference is its coloration. It's darker, it's got a lot of brown, and by the time it cooks, you'll actually see this purple hue coming out. Okay, and when our pancake is done, just scoop it out, set it on a plate, and if you have any more batter, or you need to scoop more butter in, to cook the rest of your batter like I do here, just scoop a little bit more butter in there, just so we don't get any stick. And then go ahead and cook up the next one like we did the first one. You can see here I'm cooking up the second one. It's almost ready to flip. You'll know when they're ready to flip just like a normal pancake because you'll see all kinds of little bubbles and air pockets. You'll see all those little bubbles and air pockets starting to explode and open up in the top portion of the pancake. And that's how I always tell when my pancakes are ready to flip. You may be different, just depends on how you make your pancake batter, I guess. Another good way is to just try to pick it up with the spatula. And if it feels like it wants to break or rip on you, then you know it's not ready to flip. And then when your pancakes are done, just serve them up like you would any other pancake. I like mine with a little butter and syrup. And today I'm actually going to be using some wood sorrel syrup that I made. And if you guys don't know how to make wood sorrel syrup, I'll put a link in the description below as well on how to make wood sorrel syrup. So I thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Our water's almost ready here. What I like to do to make my teas, because if you use boiling water, you're going to actually extract more flavors and medicinals out of the herbs than you will if you steep them. And that can be a good thing, but that can also be a really bad thing. Some plants, whenever you boil them, their flavor becomes too strong. Sometimes the bitter overtones will come out, sometimes sour overtones will come out. It just really depends on which plant you're working with. And with Spicebush, something I've noticed is if I boil it, I actually get a lot more of those bitter flavors. Okay, you can see our water is ready and it's almost getting ready to boil. At this point, I'm just going to turn off the burner. We're going to dump our twigs right in there. Once you get your twigs in, what I like to do is just kind of shake it around a little bit, just like you're making any other tea, like you would dunk a tea bag. Helps to release a lot of the flavors, minerals, and antioxidants from the plant or the bark, or twigs in this case, for example. Okay, so we've got our Spicebush twigs in our hot water. We're just going to let this steep for 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, and at this point, it's been 10-15 minutes, and our Spicebush is done. Just want to take a fork and pick out these sticks. Okay, and as you can see, our Spicebush is all taken out. And you may notice that this water is actually clear. Spicebush doesn't really produce a lot of color. It just produces a lot of flavor. And at this point, you could just pour some of this out into a cup and sweeten it up with sugar or honey, agave nectar, or whatever it is that you prefer to sweeten it with, even maple syrup or molasses. However, you could also put some sugar in here. You know, there's about a cup and a half of water, so you probably want to put anywhere from a cup to a cup and a quarter of sugar. And then you could boil this down and reduce it and turn it into a syrup. What I'm going to do, however, is I'm just going to take a little bit of raw honey. I'm going to put myself a little bit of raw honey in this cup, and I'm going to make myself a little bit of Spicebush tea. And then I'm going to take the rest of this and I'm going to boil it into some syrup. Alright, our tea's done, our honey's melted. It's ready to drink. Man, that tastes good. Ah. As you can see, I've got some things laid out here. I've got a bowl that I got frozen. I put it in the freezer for about 20 to 30 minutes to get it nice and cold. I've got 2 beaters here that I put in the freezer as well to get them nice and cold. I've got a half gallon of cream, whipping cream here. I've got 8 ounces of cream, actually 6 ounces of cream cheese because I've used some of it. I have a jar of Spicebush syrup that I made up recently. I got another bowl here so we can soften up our cream cheese. So without further ado, let's get started. What I like to do to soften up my cream cheese is I like to turn my oven on to 200 or 250 degrees, and then I like to put just a few ounces of cream cheese inside this glass Pyrex bowl and put that in the oven for a few minutes. And I like to do that while I'm whipping up the cream. Okay, so we've got our cream cheese into our bowl. We're just going to set that into the oven and get it softened up. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to measure myself out about 2 to 3 cups of whipping cream. It just depends. You can raise this up to 4 or 5, or you can increase this recipe to use a whole gallon if you really feel like it. We've got ourselves 3 cups of whipping cream. Alright, now one thing I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to mix it around, kind of mix the stuff up around in the bowl, and I'm going to check the peak. Alright, that's really nice. That's looking beautiful. Alright, so our cream cheese is now nice and softened, so we've got it out of the oven. We're going to take our Spicebush syrup, and we're going to mix it in with our cream cheese. And you can use anywhere from half to 3/4 to a full cup for the amount of whipping cream that I used here. And now we just want to mix this all together. And after we mix it together, because the syrup is cold, we're going to have to put it back into the oven for a bit so we can get that cream cheese nice and softened up real well. Make sure you smell it and or taste it, see if you got it where you want. And you want this to taste really sweet, because whenever it gets mixed in with the whipping cream and then frozen, it's going to be toned down quite a bit. Okay, you can see we got the cream cheese out of the oven. Now you still see these chunks in here, but they're extremely soft. I put the fork in them and they just dissolve. They just want to break apart and dissolve. That's the point we're looking for. Now if we add this directly to our whipping cream now, it's going to turn our whipping cream back into goo. So we just want to let this sit here for a couple minutes. It's not going to take long for it to cool down. Alright, so now that our cream cheese and syrup mixture is cooled down enough, go ahead and dump that directly into your bowl of whipping cream. Now we just want to take this and we just want to mix this into our whipping cream. And if you want, you can use a beater for this process. I usually don't. Alright. Now we've whipped a lot of air into this, and it's really hard to even find any chunks of cream cheese. Now at this point you want to go ahead and take a little bit and taste it and see what you think about the flavor and see if you want to add more. We're not really going to have to worry much about the addition. Just go ahead and drizzle it in. I'm just going to go ahead and use the rest of this. Now the last thing we want to do is we just want to add a little bit of vanilla. We're not going for vanilla ice cream, but the vanilla will actually pick up the flavor of the Spicebush a good amount. Alright, and then at this point, all you want to do is put some aluminum foil over this, put it inside of your freezer, and then give it a stir every 15 to 20 minutes. Alright, it's been about, I don't know, 40-50 minutes or so, and the edges of the ice cream are now starting to get kind of solid and frozen up. I've already stirred this about 2 to 3 times, so it's a good idea. Just go ahead and keep stirring it. Like I said, about every 20-30 minutes or so, and this will help to keep the ice crystals really small. Okay, it's been about 6.5 hours, and our ice cream is now done. And here you can see it's got a normal consistency, a lot like normal ice cream. And it tastes a lot like normal ice cream. However, this has a Spicebush twist. And it's rather late, it's actually about 12:30 in the morning right now, so I'm not going to have very much, but I am going to serve myself up some. Oh yeah. I thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys try out this ice cream recipe, and I hope you enjoy it as well. I got a pretty easy way that I like to harvest my sassafras root, and I usually do it with just a knife. Here, this little green sapling that you see in front of us is sassafras. This is a small sassafras tree or bush. Sassafras can get to varying heights in the eastern woodlands. Usually you'll find them anywhere from around 4 to 12 feet tall, but every once in a while you'll get lucky and find one that's 30 feet tall or more. Okay, and once you've got to your sassafras tree, and you found one that you want to harvest, the thing we want to harvest is the root. And what you want to do is you want to go ahead and clear away the debris, and then clear away any loose dirt that you can with your hands. If you're going to be harvesting something bigger, you're probably going to need a shovel or a trowel. And here you can see we've started to expose the root. So at this point, you just want to take your knife and be very careful and just loosen up the soil. You'll see that once we loosen up the soil, a good portion of it is now loose. Now, we just want to grab and then pull. And once we've done that, this is what we have. We have the big section of the root. Okay, and then once you've got your sassafras roots and you're at home, go ahead and get them to your sink. Of course, just wash them up really good. And what I like to do after I get a preliminary washing, I like to go ahead and just take a brush. A brush kind of like this will do just fine. You can use a toothbrush or anything of that nature. And this just helps to remove any loose bark or any loose dirt or dirt that's stuck on there that we couldn't get off very well. So you just want to go ahead and wash these up. Scrub them up really good with the brush. And then once you've washed them up, just go ahead and pat them dry with a paper towel. They're going to get wet anyways. If you want to go ahead and skip this step, you can. I just like to do it to see how much dirt I actually got off of them, to see how dirty they still are. Okay, now you may be able to see it. There's still a little bit of dirt up in here. So I'm just going to take this back to the sink and I'm going to wash it off. Okay, and then once you've got them once you've got them completely rinsed off, go ahead and get a knife, set them down on a cutting board, and bang through them. They're going to fly. They're really tough to cut. Alright, once you've got your sassafras roots cut up, go ahead and get yourself about 2 cups of water into a saucepan, put it on the stove, and get it to boiling. And once we get this boiling, I'll come back to you. Alright, you can see our water's boiling now, so all we're going to do is we're just going to throw our sassafras roots right into the water, and we're just going to boil this until it's a reddish brown in color. Okay, you can see the color of our water starting to change. Now it's getting this kind of pinkish hue to it. It's real light in color. The smell of sassafras is going to be getting stronger and stronger at this point. And now really at this point it's just kind of a matter of getting it to the point you actually like it. Everybody has a different personal preference. I'm actually going to turn my burner down. It's starting to get really hot here. Holy cowabunga. But everybody has different personal preferences as far as the strength of their tea is concerned. And the darker this water becomes, the stronger it's going to be. So that'll kind of give you an idea of about how dark you want it, I hope. Okay, and here you can see our water's changed to a dark reddish brown. And this is the point I like it. Really good, strong smell of sassafras. So all we want to do now is we just want to pick those roots out. Alright, at this point, your sassafras tea is done. You can actually strain some of these smaller particles out of here if you feel like it with like a coffee filter or something. I don't usually worry about it, so you can just go ahead and pour yourself a cup. And once it's done, you can either put it in the fridge and sweeten it and cool it down, drink it cold, or you can drink it warm. It doesn't really matter. I like mine warm and I like mine cold. Still a little hot. But yeah, that's good. So I thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.